Welcome, and thank you for taking time to join me today for part 2 of Area 51. Area 51. It's located in the southwestern Nevada desert about 80 miles northwest of Las Vegas. Area 51 is a common name for a highly classified United States Air Force facility within the Nevada Test and Training Range. It's a remote detachment administered by Edwards Air Force Base. The facility is officially called Groom Lake. Today, the base and training range complex are part of the Nevada National Security Site, with the CIA referring to it as the Groom Lake Airport. And if you've listened to our first report, we've learned that we have had a number of recovered or partially recovered spacecraft. And now we are learning that the Air Force has shot down a UFO. The story has had low visibility after the U.S. government tried to bury the official report. It was the night of March the 26th, 1962. At the height of the Cold War, a UFO approached the largest U.S. Air Force base in Europe, headquarters for the defense of NATO countries. About 12:45 a.m., a lieutenant gave orders that something hostile was incoming and that the gunners were to shoot down anything coming toward the base. He stated that no friendlies would be flying below 2,700 feet. Anything else was to be shot down. Richard Doty, a retired special agent who worked for the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, says he can now talk about the incident, and here is what took place on the night of March the 26th in 1962.
The Vulcan fired first at Bogey 1. All the Vulcan rounds struck Bogey 1. Remember, we're talking about 6,000 rounds of 20 millimeter. Bogey 1 crashed in a field west of Ramstein. Bogey 1 was on the ground, but didn't seem to be damaged. Did the Soviet Union just send in a nuclear bomb in the form of a flying saucer? Hello, my name is Richard Doty. I'm a former intelligence officer with the Air Force Office of Special Investigations. In 1974, Ramstein Air Base in West Germany was home to the United States Air Force European headquarters. The base also contained Detachment 1, 512th Tactical Fighter Squadron. Tactical Fighter Squadron contained F-4 aircraft that protected the base and protected the surrounding areas from enemy attack. To protect the base from an air attack, the 4th Platoon Bravo Company was deployed in the mountain pass northeast of the airbase. 6 miles southeast of the base was the Air Defense Operations Center, or abbreviated ADOC. The air defense system protecting Ramstein Air Base contained 2 weapon systems: a Vulcan cannon firing 20 millimeter rounds in the air for low flying, and a Chaparral missile system that could knock down anything that was higher. At 22:30 hours on May 23rd of 1974, the ADAC informed the Army Air Defense Unit that an object was tracked on radar flying towards Ramstein Air Base. The object was designated Bogey 1. The Army unit was informed Bogey 1 was flying at 6,000 feet and did not identify itself. The Army unit immediately went into Red Option 1, which meant all air defense systems were activated. After all attempts to identify the bogey failed, the commander authorized the Army unit to shoot down Bogey 1. Both Chaparral and Vulcan systems locked onto Bogey 1 Air Base. So immediately, ADAC notified the Ramstein Air Base command post that this craft left radar and might have landed. So security forces at Ramstein was notified to search the area for Bogey 1. Now, the security force would have been the Air Force security police personnel, combat trained, with heavy weapons and heavy vehicles, going out there and trying to locate where this landed. Now, this is over an hour later. ADAC advised the Army Defense Command that Bogey 1 was flying directly at their location, 16 miles away at 2,900 feet. Now, what happened between that almost 2-hour period of time? We don't know. Now, you can just imagine what the commander of that air defense system thought, how he was going to prepare. I mean, suddenly he's told, here it is, it's coming right at you. Both the Chaparral and the Vulcan system locked onto Bogey 1. The Vulcan fired first at Bogey 1. All the Vulcan rounds struck Bogey 1. Bogey 1 continued to fly, at which time the Chaparral missiles was activated and fired at the bogey. Hitting the bogey, a second Vulcan system fired another 6 rounds. Remember, we're talking about 6,000 rounds of 20 millimeter. Bogey 1 crashed in a field west of Ramstein. It fell in a field some distance away from the air defense artillery personnel, and again, west of Ramstein Air Base, in a large field. The closest community would have been the village of Ramstein landed. 1:43 a.m., a German fire unit arrived on scene. Now this presented the surrounding grassland. Ground assault units of the 32nd arrived on scene. The artillery, the air defense artillery unit, also had an attack force. The Army Assault Team commander described Bogey 1 as being elliptical in shape, 20 feet in diameter. There were no windows or doors. Bogey 1 did not contain any emblems or other markings. There was a bluish light emitted from the bottom of the craft. Now, if you were the commander, can you just imagine reporting this back to the command post? We got a flying saucer here. What do we do with it? And I'm not making that up. That's actually was recorded on tape of what the commander said. We have a flying saucer here. What are we supposed to do? How do we treat it? Now, this bluish light being emitted from under the aircraft scared a lot of people, not just that commander of that assault team, but also the fire personnel. They didn't know if this thing was sort of a ray gun being emitted. They were scared. Fearing the craft could be a nuclear weapon, and again, we don't know what this thing is. Did the Soviet Union just send in a nuclear bomb in a form of a flying saucer? Those thoughts were going through a lot of people's minds. From the ground commander on scene, to the ADAC's commander, to the commander of the U.S. Air Force in Europe at the command post at Ramstein, to the commander of SHAPE. SHAPE is in Belgium. It's the controlling mechanism for all of the U.S. military forces and NATO forces in Europe. He's a 4-star general. He's being briefed on this. What do we do? How do we handle this? Well, once the ground commander notify him that could this be a nuclear weapon, the withdrawing distance was increased. The perimeter around it was increased. They immediately then notified the explosive ordnance disposal personnel, or the EOD personnel, the bomb team, so to speak. About 3 hours later, an explosive ordnance disposal team specialists from Misau Army Depot, which was adjacent to Ramstein, arrived. They set up equipment around the UFO. They analyzing equipment to detect radiation, detect whether this could be a nuclear weapon. Assistance came from the Air Force EOD unit at Capone Barracks, which was a few miles away from Ramstein Air Base. Again, they didn't really know what to do with it. They didn't detect, the EOD personnel didn't detect any radiation, being emitted from the craft. Now, this blue light was still appearing on the bottom of the craft, and they couldn't determine what that blue light was. Finally, the commander of U.S. Air Force Europe authorized the EOD and Army combat units to try to enter the craft. So an assault team made of U.S. Army infantry personnel, and I'm going to say this, and I'm try to explain that later, specially trained to handle these type of incidents. Now, who are these specially trained Army infantry units? Well, it took me a long time to figure that out. But we actually had Special Forces personnel back in those days, Army Special Forces. We didn't have Delta Force until the late 70s, but we had U.S. Army Green Berets. They were Special Forces. We had U.S. Army Rangers. They were also Special Forces. But there was a Special Forces team at a base near Ramstein, Army base near Ramstein, that sent a special team to the area. At 7 o'clock in the morning, an assault team, along with EOD, entered the aircraft, or the spacecraft, from the bottom hatch. Now, EOD personnel had to blow open something, use explosives, but ironically, it wasn't difficult to open this. And what they'd find, what do you think they found? They found 4 non-human bodies. Yes, bodies. These ETs were dead. They searched the interior of the craft, found that there were no other non-humans, and then they exited the craft. At 9 o'clock in the morning, personnel from the U.S. Army 650th Military Intelligence Group and the U.S. Air Force Detachment 7024th Office of Special Investigations agents, that's AFOSI, arrived at scene and took control. The non-human bodies were placed in body bags and removed from the scene. The craft was transported on a flatbed to Ramstein Air Base and stored in a hangar. On May 26th, a C-5 U.S. Air Force cargo aircraft flew the craft and the bodies to Nellis Air Force Base in Nevada. The story was featured in several UFO specials in the 1980s. Again, the location was never mentioned. It was just told that a craft was shot down, but again, the location was never mentioned. Now jump ahead to 2010 UFO convention in Laughlin, Nevada. Robert Dean, Command Sergeant Major of the United States Army, retired, gave a briefing on this incident with more details. But again, the locations were never mentioned. And so jump again to another UFO convention in 2018, which I spoke. In a private meeting involving several UFO insiders, so to speak, the location was told. An actual document, a FOIA document, was received. But again, this FOIA document was heavily redacted and the exact location was blacked out. So we know this happened. Now, I have to jump back to my time at Area 51. I was at Area 51 twice during the middle 80s. I was a counterintelligence officer there on temporary duty. I was replacing another Air Force agent who had been sick, so I came in to replace him, doing his duties. I read a document then, which was highly classified, which pertained to this incident. I couldn't talk about it before, but now that it's out in the public, I can talk about it. This craft that was brought to Area 51 in the 70s was still there. But now, in in 84, when I was there, 1984, they were able to actually fly this craft. How they did it, I don't know. I wasn't briefed into research and development or technical or scientific data. I was an intelligence officer. I had access to some of the information, but not all of it. The bodies that were recovered from inside this craft that was shot down near Ramstein Air Base, West Germany in 1974, were still there in a cryogenic chamber. I had the opportunity to see pictures of these two bodies, but I was never able to actually go in and learn anything more about it.
Next, I want to go back to 1953 and another incident that was buried in the news. Kingman Air Force Station was the United States Air Force General Surveillance Radar Station. It's located 1 mile southwest of Kingman, Arizona. It's believed that a nuclear test may have brought down an alien craft. Here's more of what happened in May 1953.
Yucca Flat, Nevada, May 19th, 1953. At 5:05 a.m., one of a series of nuclear tests under the umbrella codenamed Upshot Knothole is set off. Within seconds of the blast, a disc-shaped object is seen rapidly descending from the sky, headed south toward Las Vegas, then disappearing into the mountains. Just 2 days after this event, government officials secretly gathered a team of scientists for a curious assignment. They were to investigate the crash of an unidentified flying object on the outskirts of Kingman, Arizona, a city 175 miles south of the nuclear test site.
There were 40 engineers that boarded a bus, and they took a long 3.5-hour ride from Phoenix to Kingman. When they got there, it was nighttime. There were MPs on all corners of the craft. It's about a 40-foot diameter disc-shaped craft that was perfectly intact. There wasn't a scratch on it. There were 4 beings associated with this craft, and they shipped it to Groom Lake.
Groom Lake is the Area 51 region in Nevada. When Area 51 was just bare bones, they took the craft and the aliens out to that location in the middle of the Nevada desert because it was so remote. And around that, they built Area 51.
Hidden within a ring of mountains deep in the Nevada desert, Area 51 is a top-secret military installation that has long been rumored to hold evidence of alien technology. And there are even stories that a special facility at Area 51 once held a survivor of the 1953 Kingman UFO crash, an alien entity known as J-Rod.
J-Rod is an alien who allegedly worked at Area 51 over a period of years, and it was J-Rod's mission or duty to help reverse engineer technology that was apparently from the 1953 Kingman UFO crash. J-Rod was one of the crash survivors and worked directly with our own government.
Captain Bill Uhouse, a former Navy pilot who later worked for the U.S. Air Force performing experimental testing on aircraft, was assigned to Area 51 in the mid-1960s. And he claims that he not only studied the craft that allegedly crashed in Kingman, Arizona, but also had direct contact with J-Rod.
We had a long period of introduction into meeting, an alien. And I called him J-Rod. That's the name that the linguist gave him. And he would talk, but he'd sound just like, if you spoke, he'd sound like you. He's like one of the, a parrot, but he'd try and answer your question, Basically, it was only engineering advice or science advice.
There's also another whistleblower by the name of Dan Burish, And Dan Burish said that he was hired as a microbiologist to basically care for J-Rod, ensuring that he remained healthy. And this went on for years and years and years.
According to Dan Burish and Bill Uhouse, J-Rod was housed in a special underground chamber at Area 51. And there have been numerous other accounts of extraterrestrials working with the United States government.
The Kingsman base was closed in 1958. About Space has shared a report about President Dwight D. Eisenhower while on vacation in Palm Springs went missing one night, possibly to meet with an alien being. Well, more information has been uncovered about President Eisenhower and his involvement with aliens.
Is it possible that the United States government has met with and worked with entities like J-Rod and other alien visitors since at least the 1950s? According to UFO researchers, there is evidence that extraterrestrials have not only been held at secret military bases, but have even met face-to-face with the commander-in-chief inside the walls of the Pentagon. One of the most detailed accounts of a presidential close encounter is the story of an otherworldly visitor named Valiant Thor.
As the story goes, in 1957, a UFO landed in Virginia, very close to Washington, D.C. Police officers were called to the scene, and out stepped a human-looking gentleman who wanted to visit with then President Eisenhower. He was taken directly to the Pentagon and was able to arrange a meeting with President Eisenhower. In this meeting, he basically stated that he was very much concerned about our use of nuclear weapons.
Just as another country would post an ambassador to the United States, the theory was that Valiant Thor was the ambassador from the extraterrestrials, and he was from time to time advising President Eisenhower and the US government on policy issues.
This idea that an actual physical extraterrestrial visitor could potentially be influencing the course of the world is a possibility.
About Space Today brings you the reports so that you can research them for yourselves and come to your own conclusion. And be sure to check out our Facebook page at aboutspace.today for special reports. And if you like our reports, click like, follow, and hit that subscribe button. And to all our listeners around the globe and here in the U.S., thanks for taking time from your home or from where you work to listen today. I'm David Denault.